Hello, Steve White, Steve SA9. Well, I just watched the remake slash reboot of Silent Night, Deadly Night, entitled just Silent Night, released in 2012. It was released November 2012, got a limited release. It made about $114,000. It cost 3.7 million, so not very good, but it was then released on Blu-ray. It was probably really intended as a direct to video or streaming release or something like that. It wasn't probably expected to be a big theatrical film. It got a brief run. I'm guessing that was just additional to how they were expecting it to pay for itself. Now, the original series, I heard about it, and I basically just heard it was a guy dressed up as Santa going around killing people. I thought, well, what other sort of horror movie are you going to do for Christmas? And I found the sequels 3, 4, and 5 in the box set, but I hadn't watched the original films. So I only just found them on YouTube today. I'd been looking for them for ages and hadn't been able to find them. And they weren't what I expected. Basically what they are is it's two brothers who witness their parents being killed by a random guy dressed as Santa. He wasn't like a spree killer or anything. I think he was just a basic criminal. I don't know. And these kids, one's a baby and the other one is a 7-year-old. They get put into an orphanage, and it's run by the church, and they are abused by the Mother Superior. Instead of treating them for their trauma, she just punishes them for it and makes it worse and basically shapes them into the killers they become. And the first film is all about the older brother basically being turned into this killer, and you sort of have sympathy for him to start off with, because you see how he got to this place and how he got there, and it's not your usual horror film. And he ends up being killed in front of the younger brother, who actually turns around, and I kind of missed this because I missed that was actually the brother, because the killer is killed in front of a group of children in the orphanage, and one of them is the younger brother, and you see him saying to the Mother Superior, naughty, because it's all about killing the people who are naughty, punishing the people who are naughty. And she really was the villain of the piece, because she had abused these boys and turned their trauma into, what molded them into the killers that they were. So the second film is half of it is scenes from the first film with the second killer telling his story about his brother and then himself. And so the first half is his brother and the scenes from the first film. The second part of the film is just him going through becoming a killer, and then he goes out and he actually kills the Mother Superior, who is the real villain of the piece. And it was a good ending. I'm glad it went that way. Now, I was originally just expecting, a guy in a Santa suit killing people, and I didn't get that with the first films. What I got was more interesting, but this remake, they're just like, let's just have a guy in a Santa suit killing people, and that's what we get. So it starts off with a guy killing a couple of cheaters. One is a deputy, and then we sort of get introduced to the hero of the film, which is the other deputy in the town. There's like 2 of them, or maybe 3. And the sheriff. The sheriff is played by Malcolm McDowell. He's a toxic white male, of course. The deputy is a woman. The secretary is a Asian woman. And they're the smartest ones in the office, of course. The other deputy is useless. He's sick. He doesn't want to do any work. He gets killed late in the film, but doesn't really do anything. The sheriff is going after the wrong man constantly, because he just wants to find someone to blame so he can close the case. And it's all about him, looking good. It's not actually about solving the actual crime. So we see a bunch of people, some people doing soft porn, a really bratty kid who you really hated, and when she dominates her mother, and then she answers the door and he just electrocutes her to death, and I'm like, yes. I mean, usually I'm with the victims in these horror films and identifying with them and scared of the killer, but in this case, sometimes you get people that you just hate and you're just happy to see them knocked off, and this kid was one of them. And then they go through, they find one guy who's guilty of selling drugs, but he's not actually the killer. And the sheriff, pursues him the whole time. Eventually we see, other people being killed and that, including the mayor and his daughter. And some of the kills are quite brutal and quite brilliant. The boyfriend of the mayor's daughter, he just cuts his head right in half of an axe, and it just looks terrifying. Eventually she ends up face to face with this guy, and she manages to burn him alive with his own flamethrower, which I think he used to kill someone, I'm not sure. There was a story about a guy who went after his wife because she was cheating and killed her by burning her to death with a flamethrower. And as it turns out, that the son of that man is the killer in the film. And he was in the car watching her father, who was a sheriff, killing this guy. So that's why he went on this revenge spree. Now, whether he committed other crimes in other towns, it's not clear. But you do see him at the end of the film somehow surviving the burns and having half his face burned and travelling to another town. So I'm guessing he actually just goes around righting the wrongs and punishing naughty people. But the lead character was interesting. She had the trauma of her husband had died recently and she was struggling to be a good cop because she had a bad cop she was dealing with. And he constantly was berating her and saying, you don't have what it takes and all that, when she really did, because she actually cared about her job, solving the crimes and, you know, serving justice and everything. So it was an interesting film. I enjoyed it. It was a bit more simple. It was more what I was expecting from the first film. But I also felt it was a little bit lacking, even though the main character is good, and the sort of twist at the end with revealing who he is. Although I had to read Wikipedia to work out exactly what happened. I'm like, oh, okay, I got that it was her father who burnt the guy, but I thought the guy at the end was the guy who got burnt with the flamethrower who killed his wife. I thought he survived. I'm like, he looks too young. That's because it was his son who has now been burnt, like the father who, you know, history is repeating itself. Like the daughter becoming the deputy from the sheriff who actually killed the father in the first place. So it was interesting. It was well done. It was well made. It was well shot. It's well acted. One stupid scene where a girl, one of the ones who's making porn, she escapes the apartment and he chases her through the street. She doesn't yell, doesn't do anything. She bangs on some doors, no one's home. She goes into a tree, Christmas tree shop, which is like a little park full of trees. And she walks right up to the chipper, which of course becomes switched on, and then he just throws her in. And I'm like, that's so stupid. Why didn't she scream? Why didn't she make noise? Why didn't she just keep running? It's one of those scenes where they just make the people stupid so the scene can happen. And I'm like, how about just not create the scene that wasn't plausible in the first place? Like just have her killed in the apartment or something. Or yeah. So that was frustrating. But aside from that scene, which just didn't make any sense in the context of the whole film, which is well done, it was good and I enjoyed it. And I'm going to watch 3, 4 and 5 sometime and see how they continued on with the series, because I don't recall it being that connected to the first films, not that I'd seen them. But yeah, so overall I had a nice little Silent Night, Deadly Night marathon, and now I'm going to watch Silent Night, Bloody Night, which preceded this but isn't related, but gets confused, and the two films often get confused as like the first Christmas horror movies. But Silent Night, Bloody Night was the first one, but it may have been a bit vague. It wasn't the marketed as a Christmas murder film, Christmas horror film, like the second one, the first Silent Night, Deadly Night was. But I'm going to go because I've been talking for over. This is meant to be a 5-minute review at the best, but there was a bit to talk about, and yeah, I love having horror films for every occasion. We've got, like, you know, April Fool's Day, Friday the 13th, Halloween, you know, Christmas. There's Valentine's Day. I like having horror films to watch on all these occasions. They become tradition, and it means I don't watch them to death. Like I used to watch Friday the 13th and Halloween all the time because I love horror movies, but I was just killing them. They weren't any fun anymore. They didn't surprise me or scare me anymore because I've seen them so many times, and now I only watch them once a year. And I'm probably going to watch these films, at least one of them, once a year on Christmas. But there are a few Christmas horror films actually that have been made since, and I'm eventually going to work my way through them. They look kind of cheap and trashy. I'm not sure any of them are going to have the surprises of the first one or the quality of the second one. I mean the remake. You know, someone like Malcolm McDowell. I think Jamie King was the actress who played the deputy, the lead. It was just a quality production, and the original wasn't that cheap, but it was a little 80s, you know, early sort of. It was 1984, so you know. It could do with the polished update. But yeah, I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I wasn't expecting this to become a 10-minute review. But there was a lot to talk about because I had to compare it to the other films just to make it make sense with the context. Because otherwise, why am I explaining why this film about a guy killing people dressed as Santa is a surprise when that's what you'd expect from a Christmas horror movie. And I'm wondering how the other ones are going to rack up. I know there's one called Elves, which is about elves that kill people, but the rest just seem to be about people dressed as Santa killing people. So I'm not expecting much more than cheap copies of this film, or cheap versions of what people thought the first, was going to be, instead of what it was. But I'm really going to go. Bye.